is just gone 8 AM. I'm just taking the short hop to the bicycle track, and I've got the first few miles on that, which will help me get used to the luggage weight on the back. It feels awkward at first, but you soon adapt really quickly. Okay, the big day's arrived. I've just left my home in Bath and I'm cycling up to York. I'm not riding there directly. The route itself is a bit higgledy-piggledy. The reason for that is I'm visiting 16 thankful villages en route. Those are the villages where every person who went off to serve in the First World War returned home safely alive. Some of those villages are doubly thankful, which means everybody who went off to serve in the First and the Second World Wars returned safely alive. The first of these villages is going to be Old Sodbury, not far from where I live. It's only 19.5 miles and it's up near Yate. After that, it's going to get quite hilly for the first, 200 miles. The complete route is 385 miles. It's 353 miles to the final village, Helperthorpe, up in Yorkshire, and then it's 31 miles to York. On my final night, I'm booked into York Travelodge. The reason for that is I just need to wash and clean up and get ready for a train trip the next morning from York to Bristol Parkway. Then I'll be riding back from Parkway. More about that later though. I'm running 2 Garmins on this trip, each back the other one up in case of problems. I've also got all my routes on the Ride with GPS app. Again, the separate sections, day 1, day 2, etc. And I've also got the complete route, so I can refer to that at any time on my mobile phone. I say that as long as there's a 4G signal. And I've also got lots of notes with me as well, because these Garmins, both of them, they're just breadcrumb trails. You're just following a straight line, a bit like a pilot would do. And of course there's no detail on there, there's no reference points. So for instance, I know the first village, Old Sodbury, is at 19.5 miles. When I get there, I'll just look at my notes and see when the next one is. There will be highs and there will be lows. That's inevitable on a long ride. I don't know what it'll be or when it'll be. Soon after leaving home, I got on the Bath to Bristol cycle path, which is this here. It runs along an old railway line. So that way's from Bath and it ran that way to Bristol locally. But this is Mangotsfield Station. You may see it's almost like the tip of a triangle. So that road there where that guy in the blue top is going, that's the way I'm heading. The train from Bristol came towards me, veered off left, went up there towards the Midlands and the north. That's what I'm doing now. I'm veering off that way, off to the left, and I'm heading up to York. And then when I get the train back to Parkway, I'll join the cycle track a few miles along there, so you may get the drift. This time, sometime next Monday afternoon, late afternoon probably, I'll be coming back along here. I'll have done a huge circuit, most of it by bike, some of it by train. What I love doing on my trips is sharing points of interest. So this station's got a great story attached to it. I've mentioned it before on my videos, but not everybody watches all my videos all the way through. So there's dear old Mr. Godfrey from Dad's Army, Arnold Ridley. And it says briefly, Arnold Ridley had wanted to be an actor, but the injuries he suffered in World War I seemed to put an end to his hopes. Instead, he thought he might be a dramatist. All he needed was inspiration. And he got his inspiration here one night in the 1920s, I believe. It says, one winter's evening he was stranded at Mangotsfield Junction. At last he heard a train approaching. The sound became louder and louder, but no train appeared. His ears told him that it was passing directly in front of him, but he could see nothing. It was an illusion. Freak acoustics made the sound of trains passing invisibly on another line behind the chocolate factory nearby sound as if they were passing through the station. Ridley turned his experience into a play, The Ghost Train. It was a massive West End hit in the 1920s and was made into 2 films. Dear old Mr. Godfrey. I saw him once back in 1976, just sat on a bench waiting to go on stage at Theatre Royal. Anyway, up that way to my first thankful video. I'm just leaving the end of that cycle track, so you can see here it is still a single line. Further down there there's two lines. So this is the old Bristol to the Midlands and the North line. It still comes down here because there's big chemical works over there. There's also factories down there it serves. You can see the big tanks, containers. So we're going to cross over here, get on that road over there. Back on a traffic-free cycle path. There's quite a few around Yates. I'm not familiar with all of them. It's one of the things I like about navigating by GPS. It just throws you out your comfort zone, forces you onto some roads you may not have known about. This is Wapley Nature Reserve, right on the outskirts of busy industrial Yates. You wouldn't think it was you. Running right alongside the modern day railway now, the electrified section up to Yates. That's just off to my right. Just to give you an idea of the geography of day one's route, I'm heading up onto the Cotswold Escarpment, but before we get there, Old Sodbury is down below it. So we're riding around the outskirts of Bristol. You wouldn't think so, would you? Through the suburbs, Yates and Chipping Sodbury. And then we'll be climbing up onto that escarpment. We'll actually be climbing up on the A46, which runs from my hometown of Bath up to Lincoln, would you believe it? And then we're just going to be on that for a couple of miles and then turning off. And the first 200 miles of this route is actually quite up and downy, but I think once you're up on the Cotswold Escarpment, you're up there for quite a while. So the profile probably looks worse than it actually is. That was lovely. I didn't get the camera on in time. Man and a woman just gone by with fully laden panniers, a bit like me. I was beginning to feel a sort of bit weird riding along through this residential area with all my panniers. They were more laden than me. So that was a really nice encounter. Just coming into the main high street of Chipping Sodbury down this side lane. Very wide street, as you can see it's an old staging post. A lot of these houses down here have got the original arches where the horses used to be stabled overnight. First sign for Little Sodbury there, look, 2 miles. We're just leaving the built up area of Yates come Chipping Sodbury, then we're just turning up onto Hawkesbury Common. Really nice up across here onto the Avon Cycleway. You can see Little Sodbury, 2 miles. That's the big ridge we're going to be heading up to later on. Old Sodbury, I think, is just nestled below that. Just before I start the big climb up onto the Cotswold Escarpment, this is Little Sodbury and St Adeline's Church. Not quite sure how you pronounce that. This is lovely. I did wonder on a Sunday morning whether I'd get access to the church, but a lady doing the gardens just told me it's always left open. Here we are. St Adeline's, Little Sodbury. Let's go through that. It's lovely wooden doors, outer doors to the porch. Can we get in? Yes. Ooh, musty smell as soon as you come in. Inner curtains. Oh, it's quite dark in this. See if I can find some light. Right. What have we got? No. Oh, it comes on automatically. I think I've just found it. Some poppies over there, look. Yes, there it is. The first of my slate plaques. Gosh, it's got a chain around it as well. When I first started visiting thankful villages, I noticed they all seem to have these slate plaques, and I just asked centenary plaque, but there is a story behind them, so there's a nod to it here. I will put a link to this and also maybe a couple of screen grabs off that page, but as I understand it, at the end of the First World War, so many villages had suffered through loss of life and people coming back maimed. The villages that hadn't lost anybody were almost embarrassed by it. and they almost kept quiet about it, especially with neighbouring villages. And it was only around about 100 years later, people sort of said, no, you shouldn't be ashamed, you should be grateful, you should be thankful. And so in 2013, some bikers started going around all the thankful villages delivering these plaques, giving them, because these villages didn't have war memorials. So I've just been outside to get my own poppies. Here they are. There's a bag of 17, one spare. So I'm leaving my own poppy here. I may just tie it around, maybe not tie it, just drape it through that hook there. Then people can remove it if they want to. I've just bow tied my own poppy there through that chain, so that can be removed easily. If anybody takes offence to it, they don't want it. But that's my gift. The bikers bought all these slate plaques, and this cyclist is bringing knitted poppies. So at this first thankful village, maybe a little bit for posterity about why I'm leaving knitted poppies at each. It started a couple of years ago when I rode the Fossway trip from Exeter to Lincoln. I decided at some point on the previous winter I'd ride it dressed as a Roman centurion. Just thought it might be a bit of a laugh, to be honest. And it's coming out of the pandemic as well. And I got loads of comments and it cheered people up, and that made me feel good. But I also got loads of comments, people wanting photographs next to me, just builders' vans going by, beeping, whoa, and all that. It just really enriched the experience. Then last year, my theme was the pillbox trail around East Anglia, visiting 24 World War I pillboxes. And I vaguely considered fancy dress again. I just thought, no, that'd be really poor taste. And I suddenly thought, why not leave a poppy each? And I thought, wrong time of the year, I just couldn't get any. And I said to my wife, could you possibly knit me some? She networked with some of her friends on Facebook. She belongs to the knitting groups. And a few of them came back with some patterns. And lo and behold, that's what I did. And then this year, I started leaving them at the thankful villages. And it's become a big part of the trip for me, actually. Just as a footnote to that, I was watching Dr. Mark Feltman's video recently. It just released on Friday, actually. He's an acclaimed military historian, and he was going around visiting World War I captured German guns that had been placed in villages to try and raise the morale of people at the end of the First World War, and it kind of backfired. People resented it because there was so much human suffering and loss involved. Some of them were just literally dragged away and vandalised, thrown in rivers. Anyway, there are several around the country, and one of them was very close to him, and it's the mortar that I came across by chance last year on the pillbox trail, and I had a few poppies left over, and I tied one of that. It just seems so fitting and quite moving, actually. And I noticed it's still there, actually, so that sort of gave me quite a warm feeling, actually. And I shared it with him, so he knew, and I've had a few comments and quite a few likes, actually, so it seemed to be approved. Okay, just leaving Old Sodbury and turn up onto Monarch's Way up towards Horton. A46 it says there. That's up on the big escarpment. Here we go, starting our climb. I came away with 17 poppies. Linda knitted me 20 recently, and I recently left 3 in other villages. So this gives me one spare for this trip. I decided to put it on my handlebars. The start of the big climb. That's where we just climbed up to those trees. And that's looking over towards Wales. Severnwood behind there. And we're now up on this escarpment, heading northeastish. We're on the very western edge of this escarpment. We're going to go along, join the A46, the Bath to Lincoln Road. It's actually not that busy, this stretch. Then we go up that a couple of miles, then turn off to the right. That's where we're heading eastish, stroke northeast. Here's my notes then for day one, or should I say part one. I may complete this, I may overshoot, I may not, I just don't know. That's Little Sodbury, 19.5 miles, St Adeline's Church. So our next one is Colne Rogers at 52 miles, St Andrews, and there's a dog leg, you have to go up to it and then retrace, and then the final one. But our next one, Colne Rogers, 52 miles. I've already been to the first village, Little Sodbury, about 21 miles ago. That's on the low ground on the outskirts of Yates near Bristol, and then I instantly climbed up onto this is the Cotswold Escarpment. I'm actually going to be at this elevation for about the next 180 odd miles. In fact, I'm running really along the course of a Jurassic outcrop that runs all the way from Lyme Regis in Dorset, the Jurassic coast, up to the North Yorkshire coast, just south of Scarborough, I believe. Some of it's above ground, like this, the Cotswolds, other bits below the ground. My next thankful village will be Colne Rogers at 53 miles, so what's that, another 13 miles? I love this time of year, the high hedgerows, the long grass, Cotswold stone walls, all the wildflowers in the hedges. I just passed Cotswold Airport with all its redundant mothballed commercial aircraft, 747s, jumbo jets that from a distance look like they're at the end of a cornfield or a poppy field. It's quite bizarre, you don't see that every day of the week. Anyway, I'm really enjoying this. Despite the poor weather forecast, it's actually quite nice. I just crossed a bit of the Cirencester Road, A419, very busy. And I instantly followed my route to turn off it, and I started going through this private estate. I thought, oh goodness, I'm going to have to detour. And the gates just suddenly started opening. So whether someone saw me on CCTV or not, I don't know. Oh my goodness, this says Cirencester Polo Club. Wow, look at that. It's lovely. I just asked one of the marshals, I was thinking I might be trespassing. He said, yeah, get out there. Oh, hang on, let's see what. Yeah, the lady steward just flagged me down and said I shouldn't really have come through. I did apologise. I said the gates open automatically as I was about to turn around. And she sort of said, yeah, they do automatically, so this isn't a public right of way. Oh dear, now what are we doing? My Garmin's sending me up there. Along here. Cycle touring can be a bit stressful sometimes. The last thing I want to do is be shouted at. Even worse, know that I've trespassed. You still tell this is four-wheel drive, so where a car can get through, even if I have to decant the panniers off the bike and hop over a gate or a fence. But it's always a little bit nerve-wracking when you know you probably shouldn't be on here. This is certainly nicer than being on that really busy A road. I remember that from previous roads, not very nice at all. Left to farmland and it definitely feels like I'm approaching residential area now. Off the left looks like it might be a drive, yeah. Phew. Back on tarmac. Once I joined the main road, I came down there and I knew I was turning off that way soon. It'd be a left in my direction. And I just thought, gosh, I'm suddenly hungry. And I remembered that spar there from a previous ride. So I went in there, got some lunch. I found a little seat down here. I suddenly realised it's gone 2 o'clock. No wonder I'm a bit peckish. While I'm stopped here for lunch, maybe a good time to explain my plans for the distance and my days. I referred earlier, I made 4 files up for this route. I originally called it day 1, day 2, day 3, and then the final one, a big one, day 4 and 5. They're not going to be day rides, they're just going to be parts really. I worked out I need to ride at least 48 or maybe 50 miles a day to get to York in time for my travel lodge next week. I'm very aware that there's heavy rain forecast early part of the week, so I may need to spend an hour or so here and there, just sheltering from heavy rain. So it's going to be good to build a surplus up. I'm making quite good time today actually. I think I'm going to get to the third thankful village and then maybe press on a little bit into day 2 part 2 ride, and then just look for somewhere to camp sort of mid-evening. Got a visitor for lunch, look. Just been up on the seat actually. After a very welcome lunch on the outskirts of Cirencester, now on these wonderful Cotswold lanes, just absolutely delightful. Look at those high daisies over there. I'm running up north parallel to the Fossway. In fact, I'm going to join it very, very briefly, just south of Bolton-on-Water. But I just remember Fossbridge so well, and there's Chedworth, the Roman villa up there. Northleach is a potential place where I can pick up some supplies for a wild camp tonight. Failing that, I'll carry on to Starn-the-Wold, but you know, that Northleach is plan A actually. Once I've got supplies, you know, I feel fairly confident just to camp whenever I feel like it. But yeah, I'm really enjoying this, and I'm very rapidly homing in on Colne Rogers, my second thankful village. Just coming into the thankful village of Colne Rogers. Pretty sure I remember this from an Audax actually. Colne Rogers. Looking for St Andrew's Church. Signposted Saxon Church down here. Down the end of the village, along this track. This is it, St Andrew's Church. Oh gosh, how lovely. Remote and beautiful place. Looks like it's open actually, as long as it's out of doors. Oh yeah. There we are straight away, look. Colne Rogers, thankful village. I'm going to come back. First of all, I want to have a look in this church. This looks amazing. Oh, front right inside. Visitor's book. Oh wow. The organs up on that raised, I forget what they call them now, balconies. This is so fresh and air in here, obviously because the door is vented. That first one smelled very, very musty. I imagine it must get damp and cold in there because there was that curtain on the inside. This feels really fresh and light. Wow. Oh, this is really nice. Ceiling. Wow, stone there, normally wood. Oh, this is so nice. This is well worth coming out your way for, even if you're not into churches or thankful villages. This is just so, so nice. Above the slate plaque is a stone plaque, and it's got Colne Rogers. Inscribed below are the names of the men of this village who served in HM forces during the First World War, all of whom by God's great mercy returned safely. And it says also Doris Barton, VAD. Now I don't know what that means. I'm going to go home and research that. But the article I was reading the other day suggested that a lot of these villages didn't want to celebrate. Actually, they felt almost guilty because the neighbouring villages had suffered so badly. So whether that's a more recent plaque or not, I don't know. I've signed the visitor's book and I've tied my poppy to that bench. I've actually put it in a bow so it's very easy to remove it if anybody really doesn't want it left there. It just seemed the right place to leave it, right below that plaque. I would say, even if you don't particularly like churches or history or thankful villages, this is just such a delightful place to come. It's so peaceful here, it really is. There's a seat over there. I'm just going to go and sit down and just savour the moment, really. This is what this tour is all about, not rushing. Plan A is to pop into nearby Northleach. So I'm riding through there anyway and try and pick up some supplies for wild camp, and then I'm ready to wild camp either before or hopefully soon after my third thankful village of the day of the tour as well. That would be Upper Slaughter, just south of Starn-the-Wold. Some heavy rain forecast for later tonight, 10 p.m, 11 midnight, so I'll hopefully be hunkered down by then. Leaving Colne Rogers. came in from the right, and I'll be going up that T-junction and carrying on left. I'm now in the square of the Cotswold village of Northleach. Shops here. I've just been in to get some supplies to camp, having a snack of ice cream and a soft fizzy drink. The route from Colne Rogers to here was absolutely superb, lovely, just nice quiet lanes, brought me in the back of the village, and I'm about 8 miles from the end of the day one route, which actually finishes in the third village of Upper Slaughter. So I'm probably going to try and make it there and then just press on, so I'm, you know, well ahead of schedule. It's building up a surplus of time. This is the final 1.3 miles it is now to the third of today's thankful villages. This leading is quite amazing, lovely quiet road dropping down off that ridge, and it's just so delightful this time of year. Just coming into the village of Upper Slaughter, the third of today's thankful villages. My GPS should actually finish. The Garmin I'm navigating on, day one's route, or part one, should just literally finish by the church. I'll try and film that. It should just literally I'll get to the end of it and it'll stop. And then I can go on to day two or part two. The Garmin I'm recording on, it's got the whole route, so I can stop that anytime I want, and that'll go straight onto my Strava page as a recorded ride, if that makes sense. I'm just hoping the church is going to be open. I should have checked my notes actually to see what it's called, but I'm just going to follow the GPS and hopefully it'll finish right outside the church. There's a bit of misty rain in the air, very heavy. You can hear distant thunder as well. Anyway, 0.2 miles. Okay, first little setback. So Upper Slaughter, I've got St Peter's Church. I'm guessing this is St Peter's Church unless there's another one. This is where I finished the ride anyway. 6:30. I can just about get through the porch, but the inner door's locked. There's no thankful village plaque there, so I'm going to wander around the village, and if I see someone I'll ask actually. I just came out of the church, nothing there. There's a notice board. Apparently this is more or less a village square where people meet. Nothing there. Ask a gentleman just coming out of his drive, he hadn't heard of it. And I've just found it here. There's a village hall. I spotted it straight away. Phew. Upper Slaughter. 1914 to 2014. A thankful village. So where to leave it? Nowhere really to tie it there. I was thinking of the railings, and then I thought maybe the seat there. In memory of John Carr Sutton, 1924 to 1999. Yeah, I think I'll put it on one of the upright struts. So I've left it on the seat, so I've actually tied it on with the leaf and the stem dangling. Kept it well away from that gentleman's name, but I tried to keep it on the side of the village hall entrance with the plaque, which is just round here. With the Garmin Edge 200, this is the one I'm navigating on, so this is part one, day one's route. That's complete. That's an overview of it because I've stopped moving. I need to be moving to get the details, so it clearly tells me I've ended there. So I can save that. I'll probably delete it actually once that's on Strava, just free up some room. And then I can go courses, day two, select, start. It tells me I'll go back there. Again, once I'm moving, that will minimise and it'll turn into a track the same as that. And then that course is 88 miles I think, so I'm going to do a couple of miles and look for somewhere to camp. I'd love to have camped in that churchyard, but I don't think I'll get away with it, to be honest. 66 miles done, so first place I find to camp, I'll be putting a tent up. Hope that's acceptable to leave it there, but again, it's only a thin string. People can remove that if they want to. It's a mark of respect, not of litter. Just leaving the village of Upper Slaughter, heading towards Lower Slaughter. I'm literally about a mile into the new route, and I just saw that gate there filled with long grass in here. There's no sheep grazing, you can tell they haven't been in here for ages, quite long grass. There looks like a patch here. I can probably just put my tent up there. Gonna risk it anyway. About 10 to 7 now, so I'm sort of ready to put the tent up, and I'm just really sort of pleased that I've got to the 3 thankful villages, and I'm ready to just hunker down really for the wet weather that I think is probably on the way. Anyway, let's get the tent up. Well, as long as I don't get moved on, I think I made the right decision, because I've literally just got the tent up as it's coming on to rain heavily. The bike's over there. So I think the first thing to do is get the camping kit laid out and get the air mat blown up. There's the pump doing its stuff. Quickly inflating the mat. Just got the trangia lit, let it bloom up a little bit first. Got my pasta in that pot, I'll be boiling that, and then I've got a tin of stag chilli to stir into it. Nice simple meal tonight. That's the trangia starting to flame up, so I can put the pasta in its water on that now. Give that 10 minutes or so while I get organised in the tent. Bit ironic really, all the warm weather we've had recently, and I'm in rain here. I'm not complaining, because the weather forecast today was like thunderstorms all day, so I did nearly all of my ride in the dry, so I'm very, very thankful for that, as well as finding the thankful villages. Just had a quick look at the weather forecast for still on the road, and it's supposed to ease off about 10 o'clock, and then it'd be dry through the night and dry most of tomorrow, so bingo. It's about 8 o'clock now, and I'm in a field just outside the third of today's thankful villages, in fact the third of the tour, my tour from Bath to York, stopping at 16 thankful villages and leaving a little poppy at each. Forecast didn't look promising today. It didn't rain until I started putting the tent up, and even now it's eased off a little bit, so I'm just boiling some water, some pasta, drain that off, and I've got a tin of stag chilli. Oh, the pasta's just boiling. 7 or 8 minutes and I'll drain that off, and I've got a tin of stag chilli to put in. No beer tonight, in fact I think the priority is just to keep drinking water. I've got plenty of water. Right, I better get on with my tea.